Hello, Augustana. Welcome to our Community and Compassion segment of our ongoing online time to share with you. And I have some wonderful news to share with you today about the 2021 Global Mission Offering. We've had 266 gifts that have been given so far, and the amount is, let me just check my number, $94,223.56. It's an amazing response to Global Mission this year, a sign of the ridiculous generosity of this congregation that continues to create ripples of faith and love literally throughout the world. I wanted to share that wonderful news with you today and to say thank you, or as they say in Tanzania, asante sana. It's a very important word in that culture. The importance of giving thanks and giving thanks to God and to God's people for the work that they are called to do and that they do. And once again, Augustana, you have done that. And I'm very, very excited to share with you today the opportunity to watch a production from the Division of Global Mission of the ELCA of Dr. Mark and Linda Jacobson of their 30 plus years legacy of ministry in northern Tanzania. This film is a clear and inspiring message of what your dollars have gone to support through Global Mission here at Augustana over these last 30 years. We have been supporting the Jacobsons for that long. They've done remarkable work. This production is wonderful. It tells a fabulous story, and you, Augustana, have been an important and integral part of that story. So I hope that you will take the time to watch this history, this story of the work, the ministry, the mission of Dr. Mark and Linda Jacobson in northern Tanzania. It's very inspiring, and Augustana is a part of it. So please enjoy, listen to the message, and know that you are a part of this, and your generosity is a part of this. And we rejoice in the partnership that we have with the Jacobsons and the work that we do not only in Tanzania, but in Guatemala and right here in the greater St. Paul area. Thanks, Augustana. God bless.
Profesa Mark Jacobson pamoja na mke wake Linda ni watu ambao wameshirikiana na jamii kabisa. Kwa mfano, mke wake amewasaidia sana wanawake kule alikokuwa anaishi. Hakujitenga na wanawake wa maeneo ambayo ameishi katikati yao, ameshirikiana nao katika mambo mengi. Kwa hiyo mimi inanitia moyo kweli na imenifundisha kwamba ukienda kwenye jamii yoyote ile ni vizuri kuchanganyika nao mwe kitu kimoja, na itakuwa na mguso mkubwa kwenye maisha ya mwanadamu.
Mark and Linda Jacobson are the embodiment of a faithful servant of Christ. Their whole life has been a life of accompaniment. In the early 90s, we got news at the Global Mission office that Mark was involved in a car accident. And I remember making a decision of whether or not we should medically evacuate. I mean, here is our white doctor from Minnesota. He's in an accident. Let's give him the best care possible. Let's send him someplace. That's the mindset. Mark Jacobson said, no. I'm going to have the best medical care I can get given by these fellow African co-workers. I mean, that is accompaniment right there.
I'm Mark Jacobson. My wife Linda and I have been missionaries in Tanzania in the health field for 38 years now. Well, I grew up in the town of Stillwater, Minnesota. My father was a farm manager, my mother a bi-ed teacher. We grew up in something of an idyllic world of 50s and 60s in a suburb of the Twin Cities along the St. Croix River. My parents were deeply committed Christians, and my faith came to me through them and through activities in our church in Trinity Lutheran in Stillwater, Minnesota. Part of that sense of faith that I had was an appreciation that we who know Jesus, who know Christ, are in turn asked to give of ourselves to others. And so from an early age, probably in high school, I had a sense of responsibility to give back to other people, to serve people in the name of Jesus. And that really led me eventually into the field of medicine.
My name is Linda Jacobson. I have spent more of my life in Tanzania than anywhere else, and it's my home. I'm from Tennessee. My dad was a Presbyterian pastor. Grew up going to church all the time, but I grew up really interested in missions. I thought we had missionaries that come and spoke, and I thought that was fascinating, and I thought they were interesting, and what they did was so exciting. My first job after college was to go and teach in a Presbyterian mission school in Brazil.
As a young man, the one place my father and myself found that we were able to have meaningful conversations was around the pool table in the basement. And so my father said, you know, Mark, I think we should do a father-son trip someplace. And I really want to go find out what our missionaries are doing in Africa. So my father and I took our first trip in 1975. I was a first-year medical student. So my future life as a missionary was born. I had the most profound sense ever in my life of having arrived at the place I had been created to be, a place where there was a sense of the disparate gifts that I sensed I had neatly fitting together with the needs I was seeing in the community around me.
I was doing a lot of bamboo hospital laboratory work in refugee camps, and I wanted to work more with people, so public health sounded very good. And I heard about this school, so I applied to study public health at Johns Hopkins, and that's where I met Mark. Not only did he want me to go with him in life, but he wanted to go to Africa. So we went to Africa in 1982, 1 month after we were married.
Mark and Linda lived in the community. They respect and love the community. They didn't go to serve. They went to live and to walk alongside. I know that sounds really cliche. They really went to be. And I will never forget the first time I heard Mark actually say, I'm going back home. We were in Chicago, we met for something, and he said he was going back home. And he was meaning Tanzania. And for me, right there in that moment, it was very natural, very organic. And I was like, wow, now that's a gift only God can give you.
The people are very generous.
Mark and Linda have been doing accompaniment before we began to use that word. Accompaniment is just walking together with people in the same manner that God through Jesus walked with us.
My name is Sam Wolf. I'm a retired missionary from East Africa. I got to know Mark and Linda in 1980. We've been very close friends and colleagues since then. Global Mission was going from sending to being called. As we went over, my generation went over, we were called there. We were called there by the local church or hospital or diocese, whatever it was. And that was a big difference. And I would say Mark and Linda were really right in the middle of that.
When we arrived in Arusha, the diocese that we're working with, the North Central Diocese, really only had 6 small rural dispensaries. My first role with them really was to introduce and share concepts of primary health care, basic hygiene, immunization, water control, sanitation, nutrition in various villages, and try to develop a team of volunteer community health workers to share this message, to try to assist people in improving their health from within.
Na mwaka 1980 nilianza kazi rasmi Seliani hospitali, wanaita Seliani ya Ngaramtoni. Na wakati huo nilipokelewa, na wakati ule ilikuwa inaitwa Synod mkoani Arusha. Na nilipokelewa kama muuguzi mkunga nikiwa kijana mdogo. Niliendelea kuwasaidia wakina mama wa Kimasai ambao walikuwa wanakosa huduma. Mimi kwa kabila ni Masai, kwa hiyo nilifurahi kupata nafasi nzuri ya kwenda kusoma ukunga niwasaidie wa Masai ambao walikuwa hawapati huduma. Na tuliendelea, ilipofika mwaka 83 nilimfahamu Dr. Jacobson. Kulikuwa na mradi wa Masai Health Services ambao tulienda naye kijijini kule Masaini kabisa, wilaya ya Ngorongoro huko Loliondo, Arash, kule Pinyinyi, Piaya. Tulikwenda huko, tulikuwa tunapata mateso makubwa sana kwa sababu tulikuwa tunapita kuwaelimisha wa Masai na kuwafundisha namna ya kunawa uso kwa sababu ya ugonjwa wa trachoma na namna ya kuboresha afya zao kwenye jamii. Tulitembea sehemu mbalimbali kuwasaidia watu. Hakika Jacobson alitutia moyo, maana yeye alikuwa mzungu na sisi wa Afrika. Tukiona tunachoka, tunaona jinsi ambavyo yeye ana moyo wa kuendelea kutuwezesha kuendelea kufundisha jamii ya Wamasai.
This response within the community and our sense of looking for those places where need existed led very soon to the realization that prevention could only prevent a certain amount of disease, and people still needed places to go when they were acutely ill. And so that set off construction of our first hospital, which is the Selian Lutheran Hospital, and was the home base of many of the programs that got started.
He treated me as a young person when I came, and he mentored me in terms of being a doctor and also being a leader. He allowed me to work at Selian Lutheran Hospital, and I think he saw my potential and made me go for training, and he really mentored me with servant leadership. And also he had mentored me and helped so that I can take over some of the things which he was doing.
Jacobson na Linda ni watu ambao ni muhimu sana katika taasisi zetu na tumefanya nao kazi. Ni kati ya watu ambao wamefanya kazi kubwa katika taasisi yetu hii kwa kuanzisha Seliani tangia ikiwa dispensary mpaka ikawa hospitali.
There's so many ways to be an accompaniment by awareness, just learning what's going on, learning in your own community, but learning the bigger picture, learning about my brothers and sisters. Who is my neighbor? Eventually, as we were raising a family, Mark was out in community health. I was fortunate to have so many different roles that were flexible because of being with children, being a teacher, working at our church, being a part of my community. And what really led to a big part of my service was my neighbors, the women who were around me, who came and said, "We need work."
My name is Janice Aune, and I'm a member of Augustana Lutheran Church in West St. Paul, Minnesota. Widow's Mite is a project that Linda Jacobson started to assist women who have experienced the death of a husband. Oftentimes in parts of Tanzania, after the husband will die, the husband's family can come and take all property. They'll leave you the children, but they'll take your property, your house, and you're on your own. They might say, well, now you have to go back with your family, or you're on your own now. A woman, Mama Evelyn, came to Linda's gate, and she was having a terrible time with her life. Her husband had died. She was desperate to help her children, And she had heard that Linda helps people. She heard that Linda cares for women.
And I said, oh, well, we need to find something for you to do, thinking she can do a little sewing and then she'll be fine. And it led to a lot of my ministry and work and a project called the Widow's Mite, M-I-G-H-T, because they have might. These widows are strong, and their faith in God is astounding.
Mimi ni Flora Herman, ninaishi hapa Arusha, kwenye eneo la Ilboru. Naweza nikaelezea vizuri sana kwa sababu mimi Linda nimeanza kumfahamu kuanzia mwaka 1994. Ni jirani yangu wa karibu na nilimfahamu kutokana na hali ya shida ya uhitaji wa kazi ya kufanya kutokana na hali ngumu ya maisha. Kwa hiyo nilikuwa nimekuja kwake kwa ajili ya kutafuta kazi. Tukaendelea na Linda hivyo. Misalaba ikaja ikapita, akanipa moyo, unashona na kuroshea. Nikawa nashona hivyo. Basi na katika kuja sio mimi mwenyewe, tulikuwa tunakuja wengi, lakini kila mtu anakuja kwa zamu yake. Tukaendelea hivyo, lakini mwaka 2000 akabuni mradi kwa ajili yetu ambao tulikuwa tunaenda kwake kwa ajili ya kuomba kazi, kwa ajili ya kuomba saa nyingine hela au chakula. Basi akabuni mradi wa ufumaji. Kwa kweli alitusaidia sana. Alikuwa pia anatusaidia kwa wakati ambapo labda sijawahi kushika hela yangu labda laki. Nasema ni ya kwangu mwenyewe kwa kazi yoyote kutokana na sijawahi kushika nikiwa nje ya Linda, lakini baada ya Linda nimeshika hela mpaka milioni na pesa, lakini kwa sababu ya hii kazi. Nje ya hii kazi kwa kweli ile inaitwa ya kwangu mwenyewe ambayo naweza labda nikatumia kwa chochote ninachotaka ni hapa. Na pia amenisaidia sana kwa ajili ya watoto kusoma shule. Amenisaidia sana kwa kweli. Kweli kabisa ametusaidia sana kwenye maeneo hayo.
When it comes to Linda Jacobson, the connection she has with these women, this is very important to her.
I learned who my neighbors were, and I learned from my neighbors, and I learned that caring for my neighbors and being with my neighbors is what's important.
It's been interesting. I see my career, I see our mission changing almost by decade. So initially we were very involved with community health and the development of a basic primary facility hospital for acute care that took us 10 years to build up to the point at which we were able to begin to do actual surgery in the hospital, and thus it became a full hospital at that point. At the same time in Tanzania, the AIDS epidemic was hitting in 1985 onward, and AIDS became the overwhelming demand upon the healthcare system. And so we all became deeply involved in trying to prevent the spread of HIV. People today forget the reality that in Tanzania, HIV and AIDS were a death sentence for almost 25 years.
We lost a generation. We had to catch up. And then all grandparents, you had grandparents now raising grandkids. So you had that gap. So what does that do? It affects the economy. It affects the education system. It affects the whole socioeconomic class of people. Thank God we had a lot of health professionals who really worked hard, the stigma, the testing, and not be ashamed.
So we had the beginning of that pandemic in sub-Saharan Africa, and what we found was that those antiretrovirals were not accessible to the people. So the beginning of the care for the people in Africa living with HIV was palliative care for many years.
The focus had to be on prevention, and then for us it turned into the demand, the creative opportunity to develop hospice programs for people, primarily people with HIV and AIDS who were dying prematurely, dying in pain and suffering, dying with stigma and oftentimes broken relationships with their family. And establish a program that brought together our spiritual gifts of reconciliation with the physical response to their needs for pain and control of ulcers and breathing was the ultimate holistic experience or ministry that I found myself involved with.
Watu walikuwa wanaona ni kitu kidogo sana, lakini nilipoanza kuwamaliza watu ilishtua. Kwa hiyo alitupeleka pia tukajifunza kutoka Uganda ambako wamepata, tunakwenda na sinema za aina mbalimbali kwenye jamii baada ya kupata elimu kubwa kutoka maeneo ya Uganda ambayo ilikuwa imeathirika sana na ugonjwa wa ukimwi. Kwa hiyo pale tuliona tulikuwa na jembe la mtu. Ni Jacobson ametuwezesha kufahamu masuala ya ukimwi kwa kina.
Mimi ninaitwa Mchungaji Gabriel Kimirei. Linatokea kanisa la Kiinjili la Kilutheri Tanzania. Linda Jacobson na Jacobson mwenyewe tumefanya kazi hiyo vizuri pamoja naye. Tumefanya kazi ya Injili, yeye akiwa katika eneo la kutiba afya ya binadamu na mimi katika eneo hilo la uchungaji, kutunza kiroho zaidi. Nakumbuka jambo ambalo lilinifurahisha sana moyo wangu wakati mmoja katika mwaka wa 1993, mara tu baada ya ule ubatizo mkubwa wa watu karibu 1000 waliobatizwa. Tulikuwa kule Loliondo. Nikaja baada ya mwezi mmoja miezi miwili nikaugua sana. Nikaugua kabisa. Na sikufahamu ni kitu gani nilikuwa naugua. Alafu nikawaza moyoni, mimi ninaugua ukimwi, mbona siponi, mbona naugua namna hii? Nikatuma watu wa Mite Jacobson, rafiki yangu, anieleze ni kitu gani hiki, mbona siponi na ninaumwa sana. Wamenitibu malaria, wametibu kila kitu, hakuna, na mimi nakaa hapa niko kitandani. Nikaita aje. Nilifikiri mimi kwamba hata kuja au atachelewa kuja. Lakini nilipoita tu baada ya nusu saa, Jacobson yuko hapa. Ameshafika, akaanza kunisikiliza maswali yangu. Alafu nikafurahi kabisa kwamba amekuja kunitazama. Kwanza nilifikiri kwamba hata kaa katika nyumba yangu, angesema toa viti vitoke nje. Hapa kwangu mimi sikuwa na nyumba mahali pazuri pa kukaa, lakini amekaa akanisikiliza vizuri, na kutokana na hapo nikaenda kutibiwa, nikaingia.
I think of how Mark and Linda's experience, their relationships with the church in Tanzania, innumerable Tanzanian professionals and colleagues and regular friends. Perseverance means something real. You stayed. When things got rough, you stayed. Other people went home. We saw what you went through. You stayed. What that's meant for relationships at every level, it's been really neat.
Mark and Linda really has taken medicine in a holistic approach, the way the church in Tanzania has been doing for years. He's really went there and he adapted a way of Tanzanian way, African way of life in treating a person with love and respect and dignity.
I learned so much there. I mean, I learned about, I learned how to cook, and then I learned about spices and curry, and I learned to feed people, and I learned to feed the 5,000, not all at once like Jesus.
Both Mark and Linda have a deep and clear awareness of Tanzanian culture and Tanzanian spirituality, that Christian faith and life is lived out within the context of the whole person. He and Linda do hospitality. The number of people that come through their house and through their facilities from the States, that are taken care of by Mark and Linda and shepherded, and I mean, it's truly remarkable.
He has committed himself and his family to the welfare of people in Tanzania and Africa. I don't know how to keep it, but he has a soft center. His desire to bring quality, not only medical quality, but also even Christian quality to the people in Africa is very significant.
Linda Jacobson is this quiet but bold person that reaches out. She's a fabulous cook, that if you go there for dinner some night, whatever's available laying around the house, she throws this thing together and you've got this great meal every time.
I love feeding people, and I love people coming to our home. And I met some of the most interesting people. They would just come to our house and they're invited for dinner and they'd come, and I think it was such a privilege to be in my own dining room and meet people from all over the world that had come to visit. Medical students, residents, visiting doctors, visiting church people.
You give Mark an idea, and he knows how to turn that idea into a reality. Yeah.
Plaster House is a place of hope, of grace and joy, a rehabilitation center for children primarily in Tanzania who are either injured in a fire accident, a cooking fire, or something orthopedic happens to them and they need surgery. Beforehand, Tanzanian families would bring them to the hospital, they would fix them up, and they'd take them back to the village, but they didn't have the ability to keep the casts clean and to wash the wounds and all that stuff, and so the children wouldn't heal properly. And so Plaster House is a post-surgical rehab center where they can go and be cared for and their wounds can heal fully and completely.
Tunaona Linda na Jacobson ni juhudi yao, ikiwepo project ile ya palliative. Tuna Plaster House ambapo kuna watoto wale wenye ulemavu wanapata huduma mbalimbali. Kwa hiyo utaweza kuona wamefanya kazi kubwa, wamejitoa kwa kiasi kikubwa sana. Ni watu ambao wanatakiwa washukuriwe. Sijui niseme kushukuriwa, appreciation ni kushukuriwa. Hata hatuwezi kusema tunawashukuruje, lakini pia Mungu mwenyewe ndo ataweza kuwashukuru.
Profesa Mark Jacobson na mke wake Linda amekuwa mtumishi mzuri sana kwenye diocese yetu kwa upande wa masuala ya afya. Amesaidia sana kukuza hospitali ndogo aliyokuta ya Selian mpaka hapo ilipofikia, lakini pia wameanzisha kwa mawazo yake na maono yake pamoja na baba askofu hayati Dr. Thomas Laizer wakaanzisha hospitali ya Arusha Lutheran Medical Center ambayo inatoa huduma kubwa sana kwa upande wetu wa kaskazini mwa Tanzania.
We started with a plan that would be about $1 million construction project to put in a hospital. It went into the mechanical and electrical engineers, and they came back and said, well, you're going to need $2 million to do what you want to do. At that point, I went to the bishop. I said, Bishop, I don't think we can do this. And he continually said, well, God wants this to happen. God's put his tick behind this one on his to-do list, so we need to try to make it happen. When we actually went to working drawings and realized we needed to add an additional floor to have enough surgical space, it went to $4 million. I went back to the bishop again, said, no way that we can do this. It ended up being about an $8 million project that we raised $1 million towards this hospital in the first 6 months, which was God's confirmation. And that has resulted in now one of the very best hospitals in all of Tanzania, the Arusha Lutheran Medical Center.
Arusha Lutheran Medical Center is a zonal referral hospital recognized by the government. It serves the big catchment area of Arusha, Moshi, Manyara, and neighboring countries, Kenya. And people come all the way from Dar es Salaam. So when people come here and they get care and get quality care, in fact, that's a credit that goes to Mark.
had this idea of building this center in one of the newest nations in the world, South Sudan, that will provide health care, spiritual care, educational opportunities. And that's the center that we have there, Reconciliation. So Mark was winding up his ministry, Mark and Linda, in Tanzania, and we invited them to come to Juba with us. And I remember saying to Linda, well, Linda, I think that I have found another job for Mark. So I don't think that he will retire. And Linda's faith just shined.
Reconciliation Lutheran Center is a place of hope, restoration, and healing. Having Mark and Linda completing that circle from Minneapolis to Arusha to Juba, and now you have Tanzania and South Sudan, that global south to global south work. And then it's not about Western going over there and doing something, but then there's the local community working together.
You know, the two things that make me feel most proud about the ministry that I carried on are the fact that we built a high quality, high reputation hospital with Tanzanians responsible for what has happened there. So we moved away from an earlier model of bringing in a Swedish group of Swedish or American or German specialists who could run a hospital until they went away, to say, well, we're going to build a hospital from the ground up with Tanzanians who are excellent and Tanzanian. The hospital is that today. And then related to that is just the pride I have with having stepped away from the leadership of the hospital to see it under my colleagues who have succeeded me, growing, expanding, moving into new directions, and doing many things much better than they were being done when I was in charge.
I never saw myself as being the answer, but the fact that it was a relationship, that we were an accompaniment and that we work together and we figure out things together and I figure out how I can help. But what was so special to me was that it's not a one-way relationship. It's not me helping someone, but I went there to be myself, to learn, to love, to grow, to serve, because you've got to be there for the community. That's your social security. That's your support system. It's not going to come through the government. It's not going to come through some established structure. It's going to come through your neighbors, through your family, and so you have to be there and be part of it.
Mfano kama hapa nilipofika, niko hapa hii nyumba kwa ajili ya Jacobson. Kama sio yeye kuwa daktari wa Seliani na kutuombea kutoka Synod, hii nyumba ilikuwa imeungua moto, akatusaidia kupaua, tukaweza kuweka mashine zetu hapa. Ni yeye. Kwa hiyo ina maana kwamba hata hivyo nawaza kama hivi mfano akiondoka napeleka wapi mashine, napeleka wapi, nafanyaje. Kwa hiyo bado tulikuwa tunahitaji, maana tuna mambo mengi zaidi ya kuja kuchangia naye sasa kusema tunafanyaje.
His contribution to the diocese in terms of healthy sector development, his involvement in coordinating the dispensary activities, his involvement in fundraising and bringing up the hospital, the Seliani hospital, from a dispensary to a hospital. You can simply not even measure that impact.
You know, they've literally given their lives for the sake of this ministry that God has called them to.
So Mark and Linda are just very, I'd call them resilient, positive, faithful Christians that have made a tremendous difference in the world. I know they made a tremendous difference in the world.
Mimi ningejaribu labda kusema tupate kitu kidogo tutakachoweza kufanya ambacho kitamweka Jacobson kama mtu ambaye atakumbukwa daima katika vitabu vya historia ya kukua kwake kwa ELCT. Jacobson jina lake lisiache kuwepo kule.
They showed that this new model that Global Missions came in with works, and it can work very successfully to walk alongside. We don't need to be in charge. We don't need to run things. We don't need to do the Lutheran way or the American way, but we can truly live and learn alongside of the people we work with.
Kwa kweli, kitu ambacho tunaongeza ni kuzidi kuwaombea umri mkubwa na maisha marefu. Mungu akawatunze, akawabariki wao na familia na marafiki wote wenye mapenzi mema kwa jamii ya Watanzania na dayosisi yetu, kwa sababu wamekuwa ni watu wenye msaada mkubwa sana katika kuinua maendeleo na maisha ya Watanzania kwa ujumla.